Ah, yes. Good morning, beautiful people, and happy Valentine's Day.
Yay.
So we thought
My
we'd.
favorite.
It is your favorite. I knew it would be because you're probably the kind of girl who used to get lots and lots of Valentines every Valentine's Day, looking like you do, Candace, Mama. I thought we'd get Candace on this morning so that all of us could feel like we've got someone beautiful in our lives who loves us because she's full of love. So there was an
Oh,
ulterior
thank
motive for getting you on this morning,
you.
for sure.
Well, this is the show to have me on. I love
I
Valentine.
know.
My goodness.
Ah, and and I thought we'd start without her, but here she is. Leigh-Ann Mole is going to be joining us in just a moment. She's also up for
Yay.
Valentine's Day. So yeah,
I love
happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It is Monday. It's also not the. I mean, it's not the greatest. Check this out. No, Simpiwe, it seems the Comrex is working. Simpiwe just messaged me and she's like, I don't know if we can hear you properly. Seems to be working from my side. Sorry, some technical issues I have to do here. Just messaging her quickly. Let's see if this is going to sort things out. All right. So, Candice, Mama, how have you been? How's your year started for you?
My goodness, Gareth, it's so good to be here with you. Every time I'm on Cliff Central, it feels like very nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, my year started incredible. I had such a good start to the year. And just before we jumped on, I said, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that anymore. Like, are people going to get mad at me for saying I'm happy, especially during this time? you
That's
know?
such a funny thing to say, but it's true. But like there are a lot of people in the world who do not like when other people are happy. So you got to be careful who you say, "Oh, I'm having an okay year." Even during the pandemic, I was like, well, it's pretty awful. And it is awful. I mean, like there's a lot of shit that's happened. But I mean, if I consider the things that I really, that I'm grateful for over the last 2 years, and there are a lot. Like, for example, doing this show from home instead of having to go into the studio every morning. People are like, yeah, it's been the most terrible 2 years of my life and all this shit. And obviously it has been for some people. I'm not going to make fun of that or light of that. But if I'd said in, 2018, I want to do the show from home, people would have said, oh, you're lazy. You just don't want to go to work. I'm like, well, no, but we can. Hello, ass. How are you?
Hi there.
Happy
Hi,
Valentine's Day.
Leigh-Ann.
Oh, it is Valentine's Day.
Two very different experiences, clearly.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
yay! And
so
Leanne's like, what?
I was just saying to Candace, and it's something that we've brought up a couple of times on the show. She said she's had a really great start to a year and she's feeling very happy and, things are going well. But you can't say that to everybody because a lot of people are miserable and they don't want you to be happy and they want to drag everyone down to their own level of misery. So you've got to be careful. No, you do. You have to be careful who you say, yeah, I'm having a great year too, because some of them are not going to be thrilled that you're having a good year and they're not,
No, well, I mean, even if your year is cuck, you still don't have to pull everyone down into it,
I agree. Yeah, but so let's just reflect on our friend Mbulelo Tinta, who is currently in Los Angeles at the Super Bowl. He's probably at the stadium right now. So I've always thought
he must have a boner of note.
He must be so happy. But from the moment I met Mbulelo, I realized like this is a guy who doesn't impose his shit on other people. And on the show, for example, Mbulelo will throw around all of these things about how he's this and he's that, and he doesn't tolerate this and he doesn't accept that. And he's quite in his head. He's figured out what he will and won't stand for.
Yeah.
And I have such immense respect for people who do that and then follow through. So the thing about him is, he said to me 3 years ago already, I'm going to do this thing where I want to start the sports show and I want to go to places where the really big sports events in the world are happening. And I want to be able to do this. This is my dream. And look at him. He's doing it. So look at how beautiful it looks, by the way, where Leigh-Ann is. What's going on there? Have you been taken away by the Valentine to a secret
I've been whisked away. I'm currently sitting in a hotel.
Look at how beautiful this is. You got the door open behind you. The birds are chirping. It all looks very pretty. What's going on there?
It's just my bedroom moss.
Oh, wow. How nice.
So the light bulb in my study blew, so that's why I'm here. I
Well, it
mean, I
looks
could
like
spin a story.
No, but I love it. It's almost as if you
Yeah.
set that. Don't you think, the Candace? It's like people who
Oh,
during those early Zoom meetings of 2020, they like tried to make it look really pretty so that people thought, oh, she's got a really nice house. Or
very
you know what I
true.
mean?
And it does look very hotel-y.
Mm,
Like I also thought,
gorgeous.
Leigh-Ann, for someone who was feigning ignorance that it was Valentine's Day, I was like, she
Mm,
seems to be at a very pretty place
yeah.
for someone who's pretending they're not away on a romantic getaway. But I'm
Uh-huh.
glad that's just your bedroom, Leigh-Ann,
It is my boudoir.
where the magic happens.
It's where all the magic happens,
Right.
including basically, this is the most magic that happens, which is the sleeping Jesus.
Oh yes, this is
Oh,
such a
wow.
this is the most romantic and lovely thing about Leigh-Ann. She's got this apparatus that she puts on at night, and she looks like a mother elephant.
Just so I can breathe.
Wow. You got to stay alive, Leigh-Ann, but you also got to keep the romance alive. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
how do
yeah.
you balance the two? Because I don't know. Like, it seems like
What I do is I keep the romance in my imagination,
oh
and
no,
the
don't
rest I
do
live
that.
practically.
No, don't do
Okay.
that.
Can we all just give a moment for Candace Mama to shine in that
Oh
shiny
my
dress?
lord!
Look at her. The dress matches the hair, and she looks like you look like a Hollywood star. Have you got the nails done as well?
I do always,
Oh my God.
always.
Beautiful.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
word!
You're
You're
very
ready
special.
for Valentine's.
Amazing.
Have you got any plans for Valentine's Day there, Ms. Mama?
Like for the first time in my life, I feel like I've got a good reserve bench player like selection.
Oh,
So I'm just trying to see like what I'm gonna. I sound like such an asshole, but I just want to see.
go on.
I want to see who comes through with a swing, and that's what I'll do. So we'll see. We'll see.
You're lining up contenders, but you'll still be the decider. No, I like that. I like that a lot.
I
That's
love the
good.
positivity.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, no, you know what, Leigh-Ann, like I love feminism and I love everything it stands for, but I think the best part of feminism for me is like learning how to date like a man for a change, being the one on the deciding line instead of
Oh
being the
yeah.
one like, pick me, pick me. You're like, wait, well, I pick you. That is the question. So
Be
I
the
am living for it.
bachelorette.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Like, will you accept my final rose? Hopefully not. It sounds awful. It sounds like a terrible experience.
Leigh-Ann, aren't you entering Boersoeke Vrou next year or something?
Oh my gosh, I'm watching Farmer Wants a Wife Australia at the moment.
Uh-huh.
I have to mute the accent in my head. But geez, the farmers in Australia, and I don't give Australia much credit,
Mm-mm.
but the farmers in Australia are so freaking cute.
Oh, you like them, huh?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of maybe moving there and becoming an Australian farmer's wife?
Gareth, I just said they're cute. That's all.
But I mean, come on, take it to its logical conclusion. You know how in my mind, everything has to be the full story.
Well, what's embarrassing is that Boersoeke Vrou here. I haven't been watching it, but I've seen sort of trailers and clips and snippets, and the guys can barely put together a sentence even in their home language.
Ooh.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and here in Australia, we've got these gems that are just hiding out,
Oh.
growing
Mm.
sheep and wool, and they're just like intelligent and
Wow.
beautiful and sensitive and full of principle.
Wow.
Geez, Dan. So what's holding you back? I mean, you just described the dream man. What is holding you back?
Australia.
Oh man.
Oh,
Well, listen, we've got a special. This is especially for Valentine's Day, and Leigh-Ann and I recorded it on Friday with a woman who, for Collectomania, collects Valentine's things and Valentine's cards. And she's been doing this for years. She lives in New Jersey, and we spoke to her on Friday, and we'll get to that a little later on. So if you're a big romantic and you want to also see a collection, a formidable collection of Valentine's, then you don't
So
want to miss.
amazing.
Yeah, you don't want to miss this morning at 7:30. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love that. And her collection is so impressive that it's actually been housed in a museum now. That's how good. So we've had collectors on, but I don't know how many collectors we've had whose stuff has actually ended up in museums. So that's going to be amazing. Marty says, Aussies will cheat on their ladies with their sheep. True story.
Oh, wow. Well, Marty, I don't know if that is a true story. I mean, you're saying it very factually, but I would fact check that just on Google, maybe.
Worth considering. Tracy says there's a show on Cakenet called A Rus for a Boer. It's the same thing as Boer soeke vrou, but I think all the Russian girls are probably strippers or something. It's cringeworthy. It's painful to watch. Now, I haven't seen this show, but I've heard about it. So what happens is these Boere, instead of soeking a vrou here in South Africa, they ask for a Russian bride, and then all these Russian brides come out and they audition. But it seems to me more like the audition is on the Boere, like, because these women come out, they're like, I don't want you to. I don't like the way you dress. You dress like this. I don't like this.
Rub my feet.
How much money you have in bank account? That kind of shit.
Wow. I mean, so important questions to be asking. But would any of you ever be on a reality show for love?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. I mean, I can't even be in my own reality show for love. Have you noticed? Like my own reality show. Funny, I had this conversation with someone the other day. You know, it's so difficult when I saw my brother and his kids yesterday with my sister-in-law, and I just suddenly thought on the way home, because we all had this big family lunch and everything. I drove home and I was like, you know, I can go to sleep right now. I mean, it was what, 6, 7 o'clock. I was like, I can get straight into bed and go to sleep. Like, my brother and sister-in-law have to now bath the kids and get them ready for school.
Isn't that the best part when you leave a braai?
Oh, Leigh-Ann, and you can go home
and all the kids are there, and
oh my God, the noise and the
and everything, and you go bye, you reverse, and you just go and lie like horizontally with your feet up.
Mm-hmm. Or you make yourself a nice cup of tea and you decide, I'm going to watch this series, or you're like, tomorrow morning I've got work, but let me just
wine and you listen to music.
Whatever you want. So I know, and I know it's pissing off a whole lot of parents and married people, but I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty to you guys. I'm just saying there is a benefit.
I mean, good for you.
But look, there's a benefit to both, right? So if you are with somebody, and maybe for Valentine's Day you're feeling very left out and very alone and very sad, I swear there are people who feel that way, and you know, God bless them. That's all I can say. They're real romantic. They like being with someone. I don't judge. No one is better than anyone else in this respect. I'm just saying, for me, the best thing about yesterday was being able to go home and, like, I can get straight into bed. The only responsibility I have is my dog, and I have to wake up this morning and do the show. Everything else is
I have to turn on the alarm and make sure there's water next to my bed.
That's it, right? That's it. You don't have to bath a kid, get them ready for school the next day. I mean, Candice, do you feel like pressure to be in a relationship, or do you feel pressure to not be in a relationship?
I think when I was younger, ironically, like when I was in my early 20s, I thought like, oh my goodness, I'm so ready to be a mom. I don't know what delusions I was living under. And then, like, now that I'm 30, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, I've got my own money, I've got my own place, I've got my own selection process, you know. And so now it's a little bit harder, you know. Like, someone asked me this weekend, actually, they were like, you know, do you want to get into a relationship? Like, what's going on, you know? And I was just like to him, you know, I'm not in a rush. Like, I enjoy speaking to the opposite sex or people I'm attracted to. I love that. But then when it comes to, like, you know, the acceleration process, I'm like, whoa. Like, let's back it up a second. Like, you know, let's baby walk. Let's take a little stroll to where we're going, you know? Because I don't know, romance for me is more in the getting to know phase, you know? And I feel like when you rush that and you're already living together, that's no. It's not for me.
Well,
it's a no for me for now. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Again, to each his own. I think there's so many people in this world who are Like they're so lonely and desperate to be with somebody, and that must be a very, very difficult thing to deal with. Like if you're sitting at home on your own and you just don't want to be on your own, and you feel this terrible gap in your life, which I think some people really do, and it's a genuine thing. And
you've got to respect that, and you've got to respect how many people, men and women, who are battling to have children. They want children so badly, and they just can't get there for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we laugh at this stuff, but perhaps respect the choices we've made as well, and the fact that we're enjoying them.
Well,
and we'll respect yours.
There are probably going to be points in our lives too where we go, "Ooh, it might have been nice to do this," or maybe we do want this person, or maybe this is how we feel. I'll take my chances on that front, and especially because it's Valentine's Day, we've got to, kind of think a little more along the lines that most people are thinking of. Romantic thoughts, dinner tonight. And I also think about like trying to book a restaurant on Valentine's Day. And,
yeah.
And the price of
it's
flowers.
not a happy.
And the price of flowers. Are you kidding? I got an email. Apparently, I don't know how this happened, but I got an email from Net Florist that I have 150 Rand credit with Net Florist.
Oh,
nice. So, who is getting a part of that credit, Gareth?
Yeah,
like
send Candice some more flowers for her home.
Please.
Look, it might be total bullshit, right? But maybe it's a part of their marketing plan that they send people this 150. Anyway, apparently you can get a rose in a dome. I'm just looking at the prices here for 999 Rand 95. That's a lot of money.
What? Okay, so a rose and a dome. Like what kind of dome is it?
Like
is
one
it
rose.
So like the Beauty and the Beast rose in a glass dome.
Yes.
So you're paying for the glass.
But also, Leigh-Ann, the glass is not that expensive. No. So I'm like, and it's atrocious. Like, you see, the thing is, I really hate the red and white color combination. It is so ugly. It is, sorry to anyone out there who really loves it. I don't mean to disrespect your taste.
It's like when people choose red as their main color at a wedding.
Yeah.
Red and white. You see, like, I love red.
This is it,
red,
guys.
I can do.
That's what you're paying for. That's 1,000 Rand.
It's cute. It's
1,000 Rand.
Is it real? Because it looks fake. It looks like a fake rose. Is it a real rose?
It looks like a real rose.
Okay. Well, no, it's not. It's not worth 1,000 Rand, regardless.
No.
I buy flowers every week, and they're not worth 1,000 Rand. Even with
so let me find you. How about just a nice bunch of white flowers, cream and white flowers in a vase?
Ooh. I don't know.
They can deliver today. They say they'll deliver today. Guess how much? 1,000 Rand. 1,000 Rand nationwide.
You know what? Like, it's very. If you go.
By the way, I just want to say sorry. I'm not giving Net Florist a free ad or a whole lot of trouble here, because I like the guys from Net Florist and we've done work with them before. They're very cool. But just to give people an idea of what flowers cost, and Net Florist obviously are probably the biggest in South Africa.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, so this bunch of white flowers there, that's 1,000 Rand.
Wow.
That's what it costs now.
That's about 35 Rand on a normal day.
Really? Is that it?
It is not. And I wouldn't say 35. If you're going to Woolworths, it might be like closer to 200, maybe like 189 for their like mixed batch or whatever. But no, that is not worth 1,000 Rand.
Well,
but
here, if I did buy,
to shine.
Yeah, it is their day to shine. Sure. And really, this is like Net Florist. This is like their Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
That's what this
and
is.
And also, it's the thought, right, Gareth? And it's getting delivered at the office or wherever you may be, so it's all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So if I were to get either of you two some flowers, I'd buy this one, which looks very nice. And I'd
thanks.
get that.
What time's it coming?
No, it's not. It's not, but that's 719.95. So I like that. But they can only deliver that from tomorrow. So
you would have missed the day, Gareth.
Sorry about that.
But I'm glad it's a thought.
You can get white roses in craft paper for just 400 Rand. That's not so bad. It's a little more.
I've got vases.
No, you've got your own vase. Exactly. You can get cream roses and burgundy ribbon around them from $399.95.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
Lenasia, that, eh?
You reckon?
Very lens.
You reckon? Okay. How about mixed sunflower and roses? That'll cost you about $800.
That doesn't look like a aesthetically pleasing combination, though.
It's a very weird combination.
I mean, sunflower. I mean, I feel like we're very judgy for people who are trying to be, objectively inclusive.
Actually, I've just changed my mind. You're getting nothing from me because you're
sorry. I think the flower guy's here. Sorry.
Leigh-Ann's delivery.
You said tomorrow.
No. As long as they don't look like a funeral bouquet, I'm all good. Like, no one loves that. Like, I'm like,
what's that show where people are like extremely cheap? And there's one of the women, she only gets
what?
She only gets flowers from the funeral home.
I remember that. I've seen that show. I've seen that show. Yeah, it's not a good time,
And she like basically knocks on the door, and you can see that the funeral home people are not like happy about this whole thing. But she's like, "Hi, anything new this week? Like, has anyone died?"
Oh my God.
And then she picks out all of the flowers that were at the funeral.
But
takes home these half-dead bunches.
But what's going to happen? I don't have a problem with this. And can I say something else? There are these weddings where people spend an absolute fortune, and then look, you must ask permission. If I've seen women doing this, and I've always wondered how it works. But if you ask permission and you take the flower arrangement from your table with permission, I think that's nice.
Yeah, usually what happens is you assign someone. Their name will be underneath the vase or the bouquet or whatever.
But you use the flowers again, because what's the point? They've been used for the wedding. Now the wedding's done. Like, are they just going to sit there and just get worse and worse and worse, and someone's going to throw them out with the trash or take them home?
But that's different, Gareth. Like, because that's beautiful. It's like a centerpiece. It's worthy of being in your home. Something that's been on someone's coffin may not be the best,
But Candace,
don't you think?
You don't know. You don't know. You walk into someone's house and they've got a lovely bowl of flowers on the table, or a vase of flowers on the table. You don't know that they've come off the top of a coffin. And frankly, nobody will know. The people whose relative it was, they didn't know that the funeral home has this arrangement with Tani Lisbeth.
Gareth, but like, that's the thing. You see, like, everything we're talking about right now is the very reason I'm very hesitant to enter a relationship. Like, there might be a man out there who thinks this is appropriate, and I'm like, no.
Gareth, you're the cause.
I'm the cause. Yeah. I'm not. I'm going to take responsibility for this shit as well.
You see what you have done.
All right.
You've got another spinster under your belt, Gareth. Congratulations.
Okay, well, we'll speak. Maybe we can talk to Dr. Hanan about this later on. He's our resident psychologist. He's our shrink.
Oh Lord,
we've already got something we have to talk to him about.
The poor guy.
But he's What's the bet that we're all going to drive Dr. Hanan crazy before the end of this year?
Let's start counting the grays from when he joined.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of things. Leigh-Ann has an interesting story on the truth about blue eyes. Now, this is really cool because I've always wondered. Apparently, only 2% of the world's population have blue eyes, and even less than that have green eyes. And it's a genetic. It's a what do they call a recessive gene? So it's not a dominant gene. It's one of those that if you don't have the blue eye gene in both parents, you can't have them. And it's not something to be proud of. It's actually like a throwback.
Yeah, you were right on about 85% of what you said.
Okay, well, correct me.
Okay, so firstly, 2 parents with brown eyes can have a child with blue eyes. But what's really interesting is that...
have one recessive gene, though, at least each. Surely.
Perhaps, yes. Is that me?
It's your alarm, Leigh-Ann. That's your flowers being delivered.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad. So what's really interesting about blue eyes is that they actually are missing something.
Yes.
So it's not like something to be proud of. Everyone, I mean, how many songs have been made about blue eyes? And yeah, and people praise them, but there's actually something wrong with them. There's
By the way, don't you have blue eyes?
I do.
No.
So what happens is that there's no pigment in the front layers of the iris.
Yeah.
There is some melanin in the back layer. So they're actually an illusion. They're not actually blue. They're colorless.
Oh.
Okay.
So what happens is that blue eyes look blue for the same reason that the ocean and the sky appear to be blue. It's a trick of the light called the Tyndall effect.
No need for you to ruin everything on Valentine's Day. You've already you've told me I'm responsible for all the misery on Earth. Now you're telling me my blue eyes are also shit. Thanks so much.
This is a very self-loving show today. I can tell.
No, but it's actually amazing. I thought I had little gems in my head, but it turns out that they're actually they're not a fantastic thing to have.
But they're still aesthetically beautiful. Like it doesn't make it less beautiful just because it's like
exactly. Well, like the sky or the sea,
And by the way, there are plenty of songs about brown-eyed girls too.
Yes, there are, and about just the brown eye, the one.
No, the one brown eye. Yeah, how many songs do you know about the one brown eye, Leigh-Ann? Really?
I mean, Leigh-Ann has had a life.
There's a song called "The Brown Eye." No, I'm only kidding. So yes, it is about 8 to 10% of the population.
All right.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
But yes, you're right. Green eyes are rarer. And in fact, the most rare eye color is hazel.
Oh.
Hazel?
Yeah. And there's also obviously gray eyes, which fall right down the scale in terms of, or up the scale in terms of rarity. And then also remember with severe forms of albinism, you get red or violet eyes. Those are all clocking in at less than 1% of people worldwide. Those are the actual unicorns.
Well, I mean,
quite interesting.
You can be very pretty with blue eyes. You can be very pretty with brown eyes, but you can also be very ugly with blue eyes. And you can be very ugly with brown eyes. So let's not.
But I mean, you can't.
Especially if you've got one eye here and one here.
I mean, I don't know. Leigh-Ann, where do you live? I need to see all these people because I have never encountered a brown eye. I've never encountered a four eye or what. I mean, I'm like,
you just have to live for beyond 40 years and you'll find everything.
Well, here's to hoping I don't. But but thank you. I'll live vicariously through you.
Cheryl says, I love hazel eyes. My daughter has sparkling blue eyes. And Zero to Zenful says, I also have green eyes. Gentle inflatables. I am the green eye statistic. Nice.
There you go.
Shadow on Candice is very unfortunate at the moment. There's a shadow that's falling right across, right down your chin into your cleavage. Just
it's a bit like a bended cock.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow. that is. Oh, it is. That is unfortunate indeed. But happy Valentine.
Are you facing the sun there in Cape Town as it comes up?
Literally, it is coming up as we speak. So I did not plan this out. Sorry, guys, who are offended by the sensibilities of this look.
No. I'll tell you what.
You're just an hour late. Don't worry.
Candice, that shadow may be a little bit unfortunate in terms of where it falls on you, but you look resplendent in the sunrise.
Oh my goodness me.
Worth it.
Amazing.
New Year's morning for all those people who wanted to wake up to something beautiful this morning, there she is.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got bad news. That's about as good as your Valentine's Day is going to get, everybody's.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Put it in the wank bank because it's not going any further.
Oh no, Leigh-Ann! Wow.
I'm sure
That
Candice
is an unfortunate sight to be thinking.
Yeah. All right, so there is good news. We always talk about the bad news. I went to go and get my driver's license on Friday, and
You've
I've been
battling to do this thing for how long
yeah,
now?
I've been putting it off for ages, and I thought I'm never going to do this because it's such a schlep. And there's this one testing center that I've been to before, and you stand in the queue forever, and it's a nightmare. And everybody knows how this goes. I'm not going to tell that story again because it's awful, right? You know what I'm talking about. Just incompetence, corruption. You wait, then you get to the front of the queue. They say, we're closed for the day. You must go home, come back tomorrow. You come back the next day. It's a fuck up again. You know what I'm talking about. And really, out of all the things that make it hard to live in South Africa, I think, some of them have improved dramatically. Some of them have gone backwards. But one of the things that really pisses people off is that driver's license card and having to do that every 5 years. So anyway, I went on Friday. I booked an appointment. I had I went for my eye test beforehand. I had filled in the forms. I had my 2 little photographs for my temporary license that I needed. Everything was done. And I arrived at this place, and I have to tell you, it felt like the heavens had opened and angels in choirs were arranged around me singing. There's a woman there called Zola who runs it, and she's assisted by a guy called Lutando, and there are a number of the most happy, competent, efficient, brilliant people I've ever met in my life. Leigh-Ann, here's the thing.
Are you sure this wasn't a dream?
I swear to God it happened. I have the license to prove it. I have the temporary license to prove it. And they said to me, I'll get my card as soon as they catch up. And, that's going to happen. But that's not their responsibility. So listen to this. I walk in. There's a woman behind the counter who says to me, hi, there's the queue. Won't you go and sit down there? Have you got this? Have you got that? Have you got that? Have you got that? I'm like, yes, thank you for all of that. Because she's got the form for you. If you don't have it, you can fill it in and all that stuff. So I go and I sit down in the chair, and you play musical chairs for I promise you no more than 3-4 minutes, where you move the next chair up.
Yeah, you sit on someone else's warmth. It's my best.
It's fine because it's really not for long. You get to the little counter and you hand them the form, and they check through your form, and they're like, okay. I'd filled in the one place wrong, so she said to me, you'll have to redo that part of the form. So I redid it. She said, have you got 2 photos? I said, yes. I gave her the photos. She then takes a picture of you. She's got this digital setup on her desk to do, because the actual picture you take is for the temporary license. And then she takes one for the card, right? So you sit there and click. And then she does this thing where she's got the digital thumbprint thing, which you do.
Yeah.
You sign the digital signature thing. And she takes the eye test and she checks that that's all right. Otherwise, you do the eye test quickly because they've got the machine there for that as well. And I said to her, is that it? She goes, yep, that's it. So I started, really? She's like, yep, that's it. Then go over there and you can do your temporary license quickly. You go over to the other counter, and there's a woman there who fills in the form quickly for you, takes your photograph that you've brought with you, and you do a thumbprint in ink there. And it's done. You get it there and then, and you pay her, and you're finished. And I promise you, I watched the clock.
I have
10 minutes.
some questions.
Yes.
Firstly, how much did you pay her above the going rate? And secondly, are they sponsoring the show?
No. And I wouldn't.
It was genuinely just that good.
Swear to God, it's like 200 and something rand to do the license card, and it's 78 rand or something. Temporary one. And I walked out of there, I swear I was like skipping. You know when you skip I skip
like when you leave the chiropractor.
I recorded a video and put it on Instagram saying how great they were, just because, and I know, like, we're in South Africa, we tend to praise people just for doing their jobs. But these guys didn't just do their jobs. Everyone was smiling, they were efficient, they were happy, they were amazing. And I promise you now, I didn't take drugs before I went on like here. Corona's boring, says Gareth, great advice. I'll take drugs before I renew my license as well. No, I promise you there was nothing.
That's amazing.
I got no special treatment because they were like this with everybody else who was there at the same time.
But Candice, do you not find that sort of thing occurs in the Western Cape? When I was living there, I just found that people were really happy to be doing their jobs. It struck me immediately. The two things that struck me were A, the robots go on for too long in the Cape, and B, people were just really happy to be doing their job and so proud, so much job pride.
Oh yeah, like I think I've only been here for about 15 months, going on to about 16, and it's been interesting. I think yes, we're in governmental organizations, like things move like really quickly, and then you get like food or any kind of dining or service that's outside of government, and yeah, you just have to budget a lot of time to just get things done in that way. So it's interesting. I think, where you win in Cape Town, you lose in Joburg. Where you win in Joburg, you just lose in Cape Town.
Well,
So like there's certain things.
I'm telling you, as a government department, and obviously I can't speak for all the licensing departments. Some of them are
Yeah.
still going to be run like shit. But this one, which they just set up, it's a brand new one. I didn't even know it existed until I got my appointment there.
Epitoli.
Yeah, it's Eco Park in Centurion, and these guys are so good. So I just want to say again to Zola and her team at the road traffic management, whatever they are, you guys are
Awesome.
absolutely amazing. And I'm sick of complaining about things without giving credit, where there are occasionally moments where you can give credit, and this is one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So you know what? Go, guys, and may you be a shining example to everyone else, because if they can do this with what was always the worst part of being South African to me, getting those kinds of documents renewed, then I think we've got lots to look forward to. And you know what? I'm going to say this. I would never have guessed, but Fikile Mbalula, whatever has happened to have put someone like Zola in a position where she's really well, you've done well too, my friend. Well done to you. I'm not going to say another mean thing about you until you fuck up.
Sounds fair. Sounds fair.
Sounds fair, right? Yeah, it's fair.
Love it.
All right, so that's my good news story for the morning. So we have lots to be grateful for this Monday morning, and it is Valentine's Day. But we will we'll continue with some Valentine's stuff a little later on. I mentioned earlier that we have an incredible collector in Collectomania later on. She's been collecting Valentines from history, like Valentines that go all the way back to like 1684, I think.
Yeah, like seriously far back.
Unbelievable stuff. You've got to listen to this. It's coming up in a short while. But first, you're going to enjoy this. This is time for It's Going to Be Okay with Dr. Hanan Bushkin. I see you're going to enjoy it because we all have issues we're trying to unpack. We all have things we're trying to deal with. Everybody has conflicts, whether it's at work, in relationships, or wherever it may be. And why I say you'll enjoy it is because there's something about knowing that you're not the only one who's going through something that makes this really helpful. So let me talk about this. Got an email today from Kaz, who's in a bit of a pickle with her parents and her upcoming wedding. Now, she's going to join us and get some advice from Dr. Hanan. And I guarantee you, this is not going to be the only situation like this that has come up in your life or in a friend's life. Maybe you've been the bridesmaid. Maybe you've been the bridegroom. You've always got to think about these things. And Kaz, first of all, congratulations. I'm very, very excited for you that you're getting married. And thank you for coming up. Thank you for coming on and talking about this, because so many people are worried that they're the only one who's going through something. And why don't you tell us what's happening with you and your wedding and why you need to speak to Dr. Hanan?
So I'm planning my wedding for December this year. And yeah, I'm really, really excited. The only problem is that traditionally the bride is meant to have a first dance, and like the father walks her down the aisle and they have a first dance. And usually when the parents pay for the wedding, the father makes the speech as well. But the weird thing is that I don't have a great relationship with my father. I don't really know how to explain it. I don't want to really get into like the nitty gritty and stuff.
You don't have
basically,
to. I mean, this is not a unique situation in South Africa.
Yeah.
There are lots of girls who've grown up with slightly strained relations with their dads. So don't worry.
Like he's been there for me, and he's never been an absent father. But I don't know. I just like the thought of having a first dance with my father for like 2 minutes straight, just dancing with my father. It just makes me want to die inside. So yeah, I just don't know how to tell him. I don't know if I should tell him. Perhaps I should just leave it until he asks me. But yeah, I just need some advice.
All right. You're in luck because we have the great Dr. Hanan Bushkin here. Hey, Dr. Hanan, how's it?
How's it, guys?
Cool. So I'm going to let you and Kaz figure this thing out because I'm no expert, and Candice and Leigh-Ann and I are just going to listen in and learn. So you go ahead and ask her the questions. And you know what, Kaz? You can put it all out there. Dr. Hanan is here to help.
Thanks.
Right. So first of all, Kaz, why wouldn't you speak to him now early on about it? Why would you wait for him to either broach a subject or when it's a bit further down the line? Why wouldn't you say something now?
I think it's just trying to avoid that awkward confrontation. I just feel like it would be such an awkward conversation, like him asking, like, why are you not comfortable with me having a first dance, and why are you not comfortable with me making a speech at your wedding? I just kind of don't want to. It's a whole thing that we need to unpack, if you know what I mean.
But that conversation is coming, right? I mean, eventually at some point you would have to have that conversation.
Yeah, we probably would need to.
And tell me, how do you think he'd react if you did confront him?
I think that he would be hurt in the beginning, but I think that he, as much as I know, I think he also knows that our relationship is not your traditional father-daughter relationship. There are a few things that have been left unsaid. There's a few things that we are bitter about. So yeah, without getting into detail, that's pretty much the bottom line.
So Kaz, I want to give you a little bit of context before I offer you the following advice, which I think might be really useful to you. So I want to share a couple of stories from our practice. And one of them is, I have a patient who is severely OCD. So has severe obsessions and compulsions. His specific kind of modus is to wash his hands maybe 500 times a day. Literally the whole day. He's got scabs on his hands from washing his hands so frequently. And he says to me, but Hanan, what's the problem with being hygienic? I want to be hygienic. And my answer to him is, well, there's no problem with being hygienic. There's a problem with your definition of what hygienic means. So the way OCD, especially OCD patients, kind of work around it is they justify their own doings by just having a terrible definition of what it means to be hygienic. So his definition of hygienic is to wash his hands literally every minute the whole day of every day. A second story is, I have another patient. She lives with incredible amount of guilt. She has a boyfriend and she just does not give herself permission to think about other boys, even movie stars. She can't even fantasize about, this is my favorite male movie star. And she says to me, but Hanan, I want to be loyal. What's wrong with being loyal? And my answer to her was, there's nothing wrong with being loyal. There's something wrong with your definition of what it means to be loyal. Your definition of being loyal is causing you to feel guilt 24/7 because you can't do what normal people should be able to do, which is, well, sometimes we have thoughts about other people, never mind in inappropriate or sexual ways. And the reason why I'm giving you these two examples is because a lot of people, sons, daughters, have this very general definition of what it's like to be a good daughter or a good son or a good person. What's wrong with being a good son? What's wrong about being a good daughter? What's wrong about being a good person? My answer is, there's nothing wrong with being a good son, a good daughter, a good person, but there might be something wrong with your definition, this whole all-inclusive definition of what it means to be a good son and a good daughter, which is absolutely annihilating you. So to say, I need to be a good father, I need to be a good husband, I need to be a good wife, I need to be a good girlfriend or boyfriend or son or daughter or parent is the perfect way to absolutely destroy yourself, because it's never enough unless you define it. So in your case, what I would say to you is define for you what it means specifically to be a good daughter, because there's no ways of turning to your dad and at the same time or saying this to him and breaking so-called tradition and not making him upset. He is going to be on some level disappointed. So if you say to me, Hanan, I want to be able to confront my dad, but I don't want him to be disappointed, well, I'm not too sure if that's realistic. You will have to confront your dad and he will be on some level disappointed. If he's very mature, he'll enter into a negotiation with you. And if he's not very mature, well, he'll push it right back onto your lap and make you feel guilty. Now, I don't know how mature or immature your dad is, how open he is to conversation, how creative he is, but the way I would first of all address this is just understand in your mind and define what it means to be a good daughter. What does it mean for you to be a good daughter to your dad? Define it specifically. And I don't advise you to have the definition of, well, to be a good daughter means never upsetting my dad or never upsetting my parents, because that is the perfect way to just feel guilt and to be annihilated with a feeling of, well, I'm not good enough as a daughter. The second thing that I would advise is confront it as soon as possible, because that conversation is coming. So as much as we wish that things maybe just kind of sort itself out, and some things do, but some things just don't. Yeah, exactly. But you know, Kaz, the thing is that pushing the can down the road is not the same as dealing with it immediately, because people think, I'll just deal with it later. But that can that you're pushing down the road is just going to become a massive barrel later on. So it's not going to stay a can. Because the pressure builds up.
Yeah.
Exactly. The anticipation builds up.
Assume that they're going to be doing
He's building. Exactly right. He's building fantasies in his own head about the first dance or the speech that he's going to give at your wedding. So he's already starting to build up these expectations. And imagine his expectation are this big now. In 3 weeks' time, it will be this big. In 6 months' time or 6 weeks' time, it will be this big. And suddenly you have to destroy a much bigger level of expectation. Can you imagine popping that balloon and the disappointment? So the first thing that I would do,
Sorry, I have another question. When confronting the situation with my father, do you recommend being as vague as possible? So just say, Dad, I cannot have you do this at my wedding, and I hope that you can understand. Or do you think one needs to go into an explanation? I cannot have you do this at my wedding because this, and this. What do you recommend?
So what I always recommend is that the more mature the other person is on the other side of the table, the more general you can be because they get it. The more immature the other person on the other side of the table is, the more specific you have to be. So for example, if I'm dealing with a really mature individual, let's say a mature parent, and I say, Dad, I thought about it. I think it's a better idea that Mom maybe makes the first speech, or maybe I do the first dance with my husband, or I do the first dance with whatever. A mature person will go, I get it. Our relationship hasn't been what it maybe could have or should have been. We've made certain mistakes together. I get what you're saying. No need for further explanation. But if the person is immature, they might or might be incredibly disappointed with that generality, and then you have to be way more specific. This is my decision, and this is why I've decided to do what I've done, and this is how I'm prepared to negotiate moving forward. Now, of course, you say, listen, he was a present dad, he was an available dad, maybe you didn't have the kind of relationship that you'd wished for. So I would definitely not confront it in an ugly way, but I would address it in a form of negotiation. So, Dad, I know we can't do this, or I don't feel comfortable doing that. Can we maybe think of other ways in which we can make sure that whilst you don't get the first dance, or maybe you don't do the speech, perhaps we can work out a system or a way in which you still feel that that you do participate and you are a part of the wedding as a dad. But as I said, the first step for you is for you to define for yourself what it means to be a good daughter. I would confront the situation as soon as possible, and I would be very specific with regards to what you want and the solutions moving forward. That's what I would do.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
I'm fascinated by this also because there are these traditional roles in a wedding, and we kind of just assume that we have to all do these things, but it's your wedding. I mean, if there's any day, and I often tease people who listen to the show about these bridezillas who try and make their wedding a big show just about them, and it's this insanely selfish occasion where it's all princess stuff. But it is your day, and really you should be able to decide. You must make it special for you and make it special for your husband, and that's important. But also, I mean, like Dr. Hanan, the sooner you do these things, the less anxiety for you. Because if you pick up the phone and you talk to him today, or even better, you go and see him or whatever, you said to him, listen, my wedding's coming up in a year. I want to get this out of the way. I want to sort this out now. Then you can spend the rest of the year being relaxed about it. But every day that you get closer to the wedding where you haven't spoken to him is going to make it worse and worse in your head.
For sure. For sure. Kaz, you know, as I said, like the longer you prolong it, the more you're sitting on the fence and you're having these anxieties of how it would be pan out. For all you know, you might be speaking to your dad and he kind of gets it and you all move on. Or he doesn't get it and then maybe you need a little bit of time to kind of come up with creative ways to make everybody
cool off a bit. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I would address it. But I also want to say to you that sometimes in life you have a choice between easy and easy, but in this case you have a choice between bad and worse. In other words, you're either going to address it and it's very difficult, or you're not going to address it, which is even worse. And you have to ask yourself, what decision, and this is quite important because I know a wedding is a big deal, especially for girls. Ask yourself, in 5 years' time, the future version of me, in 10 years' time, what would I be proud of with regards to which decision? In other words, which decision could I look up on or back on and be most proud of? And ask yourself, what decision would serve me later on, the future version of me? Would it be, you might say, by the way, then, Hanan, you know what, thinking about it, in 5 or 10 years' time, I'd be really proud of allowing my dad to do the first speech. Or in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, I'd be really proud of myself for giving my dad the first dance. And if that's the answer, that's a sacrifice. That's a sacrifice, because what you're doing is you're sacrificing the happiness for now for the closing of the loop or the satisfaction later on. So the best decision now is the decision that will serve you, the future version of you later on. That's how you should make the decision.
Yeah, that's very true.
But what I would also do, Kaz, I want to just add one more thing. Have a plan before you discuss it with your dad. So in other words, don't just wing the conversation. It's because especially if your dad is prone to making you feel guilty, don't just kind of, let me just see how the conversation goes. Because that you could do with somebody that enters into conversation in goodwill, a mature individual. But when you're dealing with somebody that might be disappointed or somebody that is immature or childlike, and I'm not saying your dad is, but it could be, then you plan it ahead. You have the key points that you want to bring up. You have the key things that you want to bring across. You be very specific and you address it as soon as possible.
Yeah. Cool.
Sounds like you've got some work to do, Kaz.
Yeah, I need to go back to the drawing board. Figure this all out.
It's not going to be easy, but these, you know, the worthwhile things in life never are. And I mean, Dr. Hanan's kind of laid out the plan for you here. I suppose if you follow that, you'll be okay.
Absolutely.
And I think it's way better to rip off the Band-Aid now rather than like say a month before your wedding, and then on your wedding day there's these awkward vibes and like bitterness between you and your father. And
then the whole day on your wedding day, you're nervous about this dumb thing rather than actually enjoying your day. I mean, that would be terrible.
Definitely. No, it would be horrible. Thank you guys for everything.
Sure. Thanks for bringing it to Dr. Hanan. And I think that's really, really valuable advice for anyone who has a situation that's similar, whether it's your wedding or it's just some other family occasion that you know is coming up. And all the best for your wedding.
Thank you so much, guys.
Enjoy it. All the best.
All right,
Thanks.
Kaz.
I really appreciate it. Bye.
All right. Very good. Wow. Dispensing some useful info there. Thanks, Dr. Hanan.
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, and listen, this is not new. I mean, defining what it means to be a good ... a good husband, a good daughter, a good son is not easy. And people would rather kind of wing it, but that's a perfect way to annihilate yourself with guilt. Define it. Define it.
I think it's also important to remember that a lot of wedding traditions, like the first dance or like where you seat people or who has what roles, is not even based on South African culture.
Yeah.
We've adopted these things from a little bit from America, a little bit from England. They're European ideals. I mean, sure, when you look at the Middle East, there may be different ideals. If you look at the Far East, there are different ideals. But we're just kind of winging it here in South Africa and just choosing what little bits we want.
while we've got Dr. Hanan here, it's Valentine's Day. What should someone who's terribly, terribly lonely and feeling awful on Valentine's Day remember, Dr. Hanan, as a parting shot from you this morning? Because, they're going to be all those disappointed Valentines today.
Or happily lonely.
So, a lot of people are going to feel the pinch because there's a massive hype about being in a relationship and celebrating with your loved one and happily ever after and all that kind of nonsense that you see on social media. And a lot of people are going to look into that and go, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And what I would say to you, celebrate what you have going in your life. I told you, life is not what's in front of you. Life is what you tend to focus on, and focus on the good. Do you have your health? That's a tick. Do you have your parents around? Please believe me, that's a tick. Do you have good friends? That's a goddamn good tick. Do you have a good job? Do you have financial security? Do you have, you're surrounded with goodness around you? I mean, those are ticks. Don't focus on the crosses, especially not today. Focus on the ticks.
Love it. Thanks, Dr. Hanan.
All right, guys. Nice to see you.
See you later. There we go. Bushkin. All right. Candice Mama's with us. Leigh-Ann Moll's with us. We've got so much to get to still. Next half hour, we'll also be doing Collectomania, which is our chance to check in on the amazing collections that people have all over the world. And we go international today when we go to New Jersey and we speak to somebody there who has collected the most impressive collection of Valentines for Valentine's Day. And happy Valentine's Day to you if you're celebrating today. And even if it means nothing to you, know what? Here's a little imaginary rose for you. Make yourself feel a little bit better.
A 1,000 rand, one rose.
1,000 rand, one rose. That's the one. We'll be back in a minute. Do you suffer from collectivism?
I started collecting when I was about 8 years old.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
I sort of got into collecting TV cars.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
When lockdown hits, when everyone was kind of bored at home, they started Googling, what are these things worth these days?
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of Collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
The frame's total value is probably about 12,000 rand.
Possibly a little weird.
I developed this infatuation with the Statue of Liberty.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop.
Yo, I put it like wow, this that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me, I hope they know by now.
morning. If you've just woken up and you've just joined us, cliffcentral.com. We are live on a Monday. It's the 14th of February. It's also Valentine's Day, but we're not going to bore you with tons and tons of Valentine's stuff this morning, especially if that's not your thing. We do want to hear from you, though. You can send us a message, like and subscribe on the YouTubes. You know how to do that. And be a part of the show while we do it live. Lots and lots of people listen later on during the day when they've got some time, and that's what podcasting is all about. But if you're listening live, then please like and subscribe. We've got Candice Mama here, we've got Leigh-Ann Mole, and we've got you and me. So let us know what's on your mind today. Plenty going on.
It's also just proof that we're alive, that we go live.
Is that the proof?
Yeah. I mean, someone, talking about Valentine's Day and whether we're alone or not, one of the reasons, actually, it's the only reason why I do this show is just so that I can document that I'm alive.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's one way to look at it, Leigh-Ann. I mean,
So if ever I was found, people could look back at the show and go, "Oh, well, she did the show on Monday, so she was alive then."
So in case the killer comes, is that what you're saying? That because after watching Tinder Swindler, like, it's so funny. Back in the day when I was on Tinder, I've got to tell you guys a very funny story. I actually used to I sound like a sociopath now. I seemed like a crazy person. But before I'd go on a date, I'd print the person's picture. I'd put it down and I'd put his details, and then I'd put it under my pillowcase because I was like, if I go missing, this is the person I'm messing with. Please.
Wow, you used to do that.
I did, Gareth. You know why? Because I was like, every time I'd watch these movies, right, they'd go up to the family and the friends and be like, do you know who could have killed Candace? And everyone's like, no, everyone loved her. I'm like, that is not going to find my killer. Okay, I need you to find this man.
I love it so much. And Gareth, this is the thing that I was talking to you about why women tend to be more obsessed with true crime dramas, is because we're looking after ourselves. We're looking out for ourselves. We need to know all the tips and tricks. I mean, yesterday I sold a fridge, right, on Facebook Marketplace. And I got a message on Facebook Marketplace that these it was one guy initially who said, I want the fridge. And next thing you know, I've given them my address.
Yeah. You don't know what happened
they're
next.
pitching up. I'm here alone. Two guys coming, and that's why Lens was at the top of my head, because they were coming from Lens. And I messaged my brother and I said, listen, just to let you know, this thing is happening. There are two guys who have my address who are coming with a bucky ready to fill it up with shit. And I actually had my tear gas spray tucked in my bra. I had my exit plan, so I left the one door open. I reminded myself where my panic buttons were, and I had my phone open so that I could go onto my security.
Wow.
I mean, is that fair? And eventually my brother could sense my nerves and ended up coming here to be with me because he too was worried.
This is something guys don't ever think about, or if we do think about it, it's very rare. Because we assume in a situation like that you can handle it ourselves. Now, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, and that depends on what you're confronted by. But I have mentioned before, little things like walking back to the car after you've been shopping or whatever. These are things we don't think about at all, right? I've never considered this stuff. If you're a girl on your own, you have to kind of look at who's behind you.
Yeah.
You have to know where you're parked. You have to try and find it as quickly as possible. Get in your car, lock the doors, that kind of shit. And it's only because, Candace, I mean, you're not crazy. I'm actually blown away by how you used to take a picture and print it out, write down details. No, seriously, because you don't know. And things like these open source platforms, where people connect to sell a fridge or go on a date, you really don't know anything about that person until you meet them. And even then, you probably don't know something because some of them are con men, like this Tinder swindler dude. Leigh-Ann told me about him last week. I still haven't watched it. I see it's just trending everywhere. It's all
You
anybody's
won't
talking
watch it, Gareth, and I don't think you should, because you would probably get irritated by it. And I'm
Yes.
just being a friend and telling you
Yeah.
that.
No, thanks. Waste my
So
time.
yeah, you
Yeah.
won't enjoy it. But the
But
fact
what?
that you're aware of it is good enough.
Why is
I
everyone?
agree with Leigh-Ann.
Why is everyone talking about it? Is it really entertaining? Is it freaky? Is it scary?
No. Do you
I
know what I
think
think it is? I think you can say, Leigh-Ann. I think, but also on my account, I think it's more just how much people want to believe in something, right? And so he leads women onto this trail of like showing them this opulent life, and then before you know it, he kind of like switches the script. And so I think it highlights two things to me: how much women want to be in those fairy tale relationships that we've been sold since kids. And then the
someday
other
my
thing
prince will
is
come.
exactly like it's your prince coming on this, like, horse and carriage. And it's how hard, once we've invested in that idea, for us to actually pull back and be like, okay, no, this guy is a little crazy, and I think
Candace, can I ask
yes,
you,
please.
because Gareth asked me this question and I've been questioning myself about it afterwards. Did you feel at any... It's really hard. I don't want to put the woman under the bus.
Yeah.
But did you at any point kind of put palm to face and think, why did she do that? Or I wouldn't have done that. Or you don't tell him that you're doing this. Why did you tell him?
Of course. Like,
And
I think,
is it because we're South African and we're maybe a little bit more woke?
Oof, I think it's different, yeah. And I think there's a couple of different things. Number one, I think, you don't want to judge the woman because they were victims to this, Tinder swindler and this person. But I think it's very hard as a woman to, especially if you are aware of your own financial and you're not, if you're not looking to be saved, let's say, then it's very difficult to identify with a woman and to be able to be like, I get it. Like, I get it. I would have done it too. And maybe I think the climate of South Africa is so different, right? We are always looking at different things. Like, we're like, okay, firstly, are you going to kill me? That's point A.
Yeah.
Number two, it's like, before we get to giving you money, like, am I going to come out of the state alive? And then number two, you're like, okay, cool. Like, why do you need my money? So I think a South African woman, and I want to say South Africa because I'm South African and I don't know the rest of the world and how women feel, but I would definitely say that we are much more cautious here. I don't know how well it would have gone down here. Like, if a guy's like, oh, my enemies are after me, please send me 50,000 Rand. We'd be like, who are these enemies? Why they're after you, and who the hell are you? So I don't know.
They're actually there's a version of the South African Tinder swindler on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's great.
Where it's like, hello, please send me money. I need your help, in his voice.
Yeah.
And his Israeli accent.
Okay.
And the woman's like, I don't know. Please send me, please call me. I can't phone you back. And then finally he's like, Are you at the bank? I need the money. And she's like, I'm here, but the problem is they are offline.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. And I think, Leigh-Ann, the little part you're missing is the part where she's like, no, I will go, but please send me 50 Rand airtime. First send me airtime so I can access the app. Ooh, I can't get that. I need money for Uber. And
she ends up swindling him. Yeah.
Exactly. And he, in the process of this whole thing, looks worse and worse and more disheveled and like he's losing his mind because she's actually winning the game.
Well, I mean, so I want to bring this in because it's completely unrelated, but Snai remembers the last time you were on Candice, and she says, morning, I had games night with my neighbors. One of the guests double dipped when we were having snacks, and that reminded me. Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that people remember Gareth. Oh,
Lyndon Dooley says, so true, Leigh-Ann, I watch my back while walking to the car after dropping my daughter off at creche.
I mean, that's just, guys.
Can I tell you how crazy it is, even? Like in Cape Town, so I tend to walk a lot, right? I lived in a neighborhood where I could intentionally walk. And I was out one night, and then this guy came up to me, and you know, I think he thought in his head it was great intentions, but to me, I was like, this is a little scary. Where he's like, you know, I see you walk out of your apartment every day. I see you at the daily. I see you doing this. And then he insisted on being in my presence the whole evening. And eventually I was like, I think you think this is very romantic and that, you know, you're getting somewhere, but this is actually a little scary. Like, if you could please, like, you know, give me some breathing room. And then he proceeded to get aggressively upset, which did not exactly ease my psyche or consciousness. I was like, oh my God.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's really
It's not a
bad.
good time.
Yeah.
It's not
These
a good
things.
time. Yeah.
Viasan says, I winner. The second loan she should have been suspicious at. So, I mean, it's obviously from the Tinder swindler situation.
Yeah.
So, Snai also says, Leigh-Ann, have you seen the Noma Tamasang TikTok video?
That's the one.
That's the one we're talking about.
That's the one.
You know, here also Michael says, oh, so hard being a woman. Wow, wow, wow. What about men who get screwed out there out of money more often than not?
Oh, please.
Okay, wait, Michael. Michael, please, can we have like a therapy session for you?
Just to give you some
Where did the
background.
psychologist go? Because clearly Michael needs like a little assistance.
Don't even be provoked by Michael. He looks for attention all the time, just to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I don't know how much you are e-walleting women, but I would actually just, you know, like the amount of men out there who are bruised and battered as opposed to women, Michael. I don't think we want to get into that at all. Tit for tat, you know.
There's a difference between your vagina and your mind being broken to just your wallet, you know?
Yeah, well, listen, I don't like comparing anyone's misery. And if there's someone who's been swindled, whether it's a man or a woman, it's just horrible. And there are fraudsters out there who are doing this all the time. And it's not stupid people who fall for these people, you know? It's if they appeal to you on an emotional level, it's got nothing to do with how clever or stupid you are. Because if someone can snare you that way, then they've got you. And there's very little that you can do about that if you're the kind of person who is driven by emotional decision making, you know. And
look, I
know girls who've fallen in love online with some guy who they really genuinely believe is their guy, and then they're heartbroken a few months later when all of it turns out to be nonsense. It's happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is difficult to see through when somebody sends a private jet to pick you up, because you know, it's like, okay, this guy's got money. Anyone who has to hire a private jet, you know, has money. So
I agree.
You just didn't know that they were living off someone else's money.
True, but I also think, Leigh-Ann, like besides the financial aspect of it, like I think, Gareth, what you're saying is also so accurate in terms of like, you know, some people can get lured in, especially through, all of us are wounded, right? All of us have traumas from childhood. All of us have weird dynamics when it comes to self-acceptance and self-love. And I think sometimes if you meet someone who caters to all those things within you that you feel like you're ashamed of or you don't want other people to see, and they play on that and they love bomb you and they do all these things, it's easier from the outside to be like, oh, we always knew Jerry was going to be an asshole. But when you're the person experiencing that energy, it can be really hard to get out of it. And I guess if, you know, you're seeing that and the private jet, I mean, it's really difficult, really difficult.
Audrey says there's apparently a former Miss South Africa or some celeb that was almost also taken in by this Tinder swindle.
I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, this happens on a micro scale every single day, right? He's the big story because he's this guy who was rolling in, you know, a lot of other people's money and he was spending a lot and all that kind of thing. So it was conspicuous. But this is happening every day in South Africa. And it's sad to say it's happening with things like airtime. You know, there are women in South Africa who will sleep with you for airtime. And there are probably guys who would do that too. That's the kind of country we live in. We've got to realize like the level, the barrier to entry is so low here for being able to get people to do something for money that we forget very often how desperate some people are just to make it through the day. You know, it's survival.
Yeah, that's true. It makes me think of like, weren't we in like a blesser culture thing for a
Mm.
while, like when it was still like the term of the time.
Yeah,
Where
absolutely.
people were, talking about blessers and how, women date for this pure relationship.
I think we're still in that. We
Transactional.
still, we know how many people there are in South Africa who are living on like scraps and welfare and, whatever they can get their hands on. And, some guy comes in who's got lots of money and a fancy car and can convince them that he's financial stability. And a lot of women will go, well, that's my escape. You said it earlier, Candice. You said, like, you're not in the position where you have to be saved, is the exact words you used, right?
Yeah.
And some people are looking for a savior, huh? Let's just remember that. It's and again, like, these are not stupid people. They just have different priorities to you.
No, I mean, it can be compared to wanting to win the lotto or looking for a savior in terms of a religious aspect. These things exist. They're part of human nature. And I think the hardest thing to accept is that we're all in control. Oh, God, this sounds so woke. We're all in control of our own destiny. No one's going to come and save you. You have to do it yourself.
Well, on that note, let's save ourselves for Valentine's Day by having a look at someone who has an enormous and immaculate collection of Valentines. It is Valentine's Day today. And we thought we would check in with somebody called Nancy Rosen, who is, she's amazing. She's in New Jersey. And we decided to record with her on Friday because time zones were obviously an issue. We couldn't wake her up at 2 a.m. to do this. So Leigh-Ann and I talked to her on Friday. She's the president of the National Valentine Collectors Association in the US. She took us on a journey that dates back centuries to some of the earliest Valentines, how they were made and delivered, the symbolism, imagery, and a whole lot more. You liked it, hey, Leigh-Ann. It was fun.
Oh, man. Love it.
She's great. So here she is. And Candice, thanks for being part of the show today.
Thank you guys so much. This is always fun.
Always good to see you. Here is Collectomania for today. CliffCentral.com. Collectomania, of course, brought to you by the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Coin Shop. Take a look. All right, it is time for another episode of Collectomania, and we've got a special edition of Collectomania today. It's the Valentine's special edition, the month of love, the day of love. In fact, this is Valentine's Day. Couldn't be better. It's brought to you by the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Coin Shop, who are also on top of things when it comes to Valentine's Day. If you're thinking of buying your loved one something really special, something that will grow and appreciate and value over time, think about them. It might be the best bet for a gift. Leigh-Ann Mole, don't you think that would be a nice present for someone to give you for Valentine's Day? Yeah. Your mic's on mute, Leigh-Ann.
What? Hearts all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's meet our guest, and it's very, very cool to have Nancy Rosen on. She is the president of the National Valentine Collectors Association in the USA. Yep. The association has its own Facebook group, almost 1,000 members, and her own collection has now been placed at the Huntington Library in San Marino in California. So she is a super collector. She's not just one of these people like maybe you or I who have a couple of things lying around the house. So let's welcome her to the show this morning. Yeah. Nancy, it's so great to have you on, and thank you. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, good.
And it's not just Valentine's Day. I celebrate love every day, and I try to encourage people to do so. I think it makes for a happy life. But I like to share what I have, and I'm a crossbeat. I'm not a hoarder, and I don't think it's a mental problem. I just found a topic that I love, and I was focused on creating something that had was really solid and would elevate the Valentine so people would understand how important they are throughout history.
Well, I love it. And don't worry about being called a hoarder, because we had a psychologist. The other day who explained to us the difference. So we'll wait. The jury's out. We'll wait until the end of the episode to decide whether or not you're a hoarder. But I think many of us are on one or the other side of a very fine line here. So you don't have to feel bad.
Well, I feel like collecting is one of the most important parts of my life anyway.
Oh, yeah.
The people, the experiences, and now I'm leaving a legacy in a library of something I created. So collecting has had a focus, and it's not over, but it's very solid where it's going to be. So I'm very happy about that.
Well, I do think you're the first of our collectors who we've spoken to who's actually had their collection put in a museum or a library. I mean, that's really, that's the pinnacle of success
Right.
if you're a collector. No,
Right.
it's tremendous. So tell us how it all started for you. Where did you begin collecting?
You know, going antiquing when my children were little, their grandparents would come and stay, and my husband and I would just go off different directions. And anyway, to get out of the house, I guess. And I found the little Victorian die-cut scraps, you know, little flowers and little decorations. And I thought I would collect them so that one day I would do decoupage. You know, that was the trend in the 1970s. And as I collected, I discovered that they were really decorations often used besides in scrapbooks. They were on Victorian Valentines. So I started collecting them. And then I wanted to go deeper and deeper into the history. And there were only 2 books existing at that time. And I just wanted to copy what one of the Frank staff, who was an English collector, had put together, this incredible evolution of the Valentine. And so that was my goal every place I went, to try to find the things. And sometimes, most of the time, dealers wouldn't even know what they had. But because I'd read a book, I had a little extra inside information and I could find treasures. And when we do the pictures, I'll show you like one of my treasures. So it just became a goal to try to find the best of every category. And so that if I did put it in a museum or library, people could come and do research, and they could take any aspect of the collection and do a thesis on it, because it wasn't just one example or the best example, but it was a whole group. And you could see how one company, for example, would have progressed over the years. And so to me, it became a very scholarly, and I was always trying to defend the concept of the Valentine to people who thought that it was some ridiculous, over embellished, you know, junk that nobody would
fantasy thing like Christmas or.
So we went from the very serious through all of the historic periods, and I found a lot of other people who, you know, are interested as I am. And then I mentioned, I'm sorry.
I'm curious about how, you know, if we are going to talk about the scholarly aspect for just a minute, because human attitudes to love, you know, the way people feel about love, the way people have spoken and written about love over the eras has changed tremendously. And I mean, if you look at a Valentine from, you know, the late 1800s or the early 1900s and compare it to the way that people, you know, kind of give these funny Hallmark cards to each other now, or, you know, it's a rose or it's some cute little poem or whatever. How much has changed when you look at the breadth of your collection? You're probably the only person who can answer that question, having looked at all of them. And what do you think of human beings and love?
I think that love is a constant, to tell you the truth. I think it's been celebrated, you know, romantically and satirically, you know, for a long, long time. And so the things we see now that we call anti-Valentines, and some of them are really gross, and some of them have double entendre, they existed in the early 1800s also. You know, I don't think people have changed that much. Maybe we express it more openly, but there were some pretty, you know, caustic things in those eras also. A lot of them in the late 1800s, the penny dreadfuls, the comic ones, a lot of them were thrown away. They were on cheap paper. People were embarrassed or hurt. They would throw them away. So in the beginning, I wasn't really interested in them. Excuse me. And then I found that they were a real social documentary, and they were important. And now they are getting a lot of attention by a number of institutions and collectors. So I don't think it's changed that much. The language of flowers, you always had a message in a flower. Although I have seen one florist who advertises yellow roses for Valentine's Day, but they don't know that the real meaning is jealousy for yellow roses. So it got a little crazy. But I think people have always celebrated love in any way they could, from the most elegant, extravagant, expensive, to the naive handmade folk art that's maybe done on a reused paper, wallpaper, or old letters, things that were just cut out or made by candlelight. So it's just, it's the basic concept I don't think has changed. We see it in the Valentines reflected by war. You know, when the sailors were going off, and we have the sailor's farewell as a huge theme because they might never come back. We have in the Civil War, where those letters from home were a reminder of home and wanting to survive and get back. So there's a lot a lot of history and a lot of passion, you know, but I don't think love has really changed. You know, I think it's the most important element in our lives.
You make me think that maybe, you know, the way we tend to stereotype people, you know, people from Greece are like this, or people from New Jersey are like this, for example. We probably stereotype periods in history because, as you rightly point out, we always think of the Victorians as being very prudish and very sober and judgmental and terribly conservative. But actually, during that time, there were some quite racy things being done.
Nothing was sacred, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, la.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have alcoholism treated. I mean, I have one that shows a woman who looks like an angel, and when she opens her wings, she's holding a bottle of whiskey. You know,
she's my spirit animal.
All right, so let's have a look at some of these because I can't wait to actually get into your collection. Yeah. So where should we begin? I
mentioned one that I found quite by accident. It was among my first purchases, and it's called a devotional. Do you see that one?
Ah, yes. Hang on. Let me just find it. The devotional. I've got an American.
It might be number one. Well, that's an American Sharonschnitt, which is a paper cut from about 1825. It's not the one I was talking about, but it's one I really love, and it's got the cupids, the initials in the middle. I sometimes think that the artist might have waited and you know, put the initials or dedication in the center when the order was placed, because this would have taken so long to create. And a lot of the ones that we have, some of the Pennsylvania German Proctor types, were made really, I think, on spec. You know, they were filled in later. And the devotional that it was marked as number one.
I got it. Here it is. This is the devotional.
And that one I love because it's on parchment, which is, you know, really before paper was readily available. And it's cut out. It's dedicated to St. Paul. And it's just about 6 inches high. And I had been at a shop and I asked if they had any Valentine memorabilia, anything pertaining. And the man was very abrupt and said no. And I think we bought something else. And as I went over to his glass top desk to make the purchase, I saw this under the glass. And I said, well, would you sell that? And he said, sure, you know, $20. And so I walked away with a treasure that, you know, it's worth much more than $20, but it's historically important because we're talking about the mid 1700s. We're talking about the cut work shows the hearts, it shows flowers, it shows lace. This was supposed to emulate real lace, tatted lace. Wow. And then later on in the evolution of the Valentine, we find this done in paper lace embossing. But these were made in convents by nuns for charity. And my speculation is that the name of the saint was put in, you know, when it was ordered, when it was bought, and they could be sold for many different occasions, for communion, for marriage, for death, for love. So, you know,
it's incredible. You say it was worth more than $20, but you know, if you collect like you do, you obviously develop an eye for these things. And you were buying other things, and you said you saw it under the glass top table, and you know, people are. If you're interested in something, it's amazing how your eye gets drawn to it almost everywhere and anywhere. And you'll see something driving past in the road, you'll go, oh, I've got to go into that shop.
Right.
And when you have something like this, are you scared of not looking after it carefully enough? And you know, we know that many old books and papers deteriorate over time. You have to be careful that you don't expose them to the wrong light.
All of the threats, floods, robbery.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I am very cautious, and I use archival materials completely. Most of the time I put them between layers of archival mylar, and then I put them in another, either a rigid, we would call rigids, which are these hard plastic cases you can slide them into. And then if I go to a show or an exhibition, people could handle them and look at them on both sides. Or I put them in albums, mostly stamp collector albums, but there are a lot of albums now since when I started. But it's really important. I feel that if they've lasted as long as they have, if the love has lasted, it's my obligation to preserve it. And some of these things you really have to put into 2 layers, because if you just put it between the pages, even these archival pages, there's a magnetic attraction, and when you remove them, pieces can lift up, pieces can get caught. So you have to be careful. And people, save these things in different ways, sometimes just in boxes with archival paper between them in layers. If you frame things, you can't have them in bright light because some of the colors will fade. And if you frame them, they have to be framed archivally so that the glass doesn't touch the object also. So there are ways to enjoy them. I think my house is unusually dark because we were always trying to put things on interior walls and not have bright light. Because I did have one watercolor that faded. And, once you've had that happen once, you try to avoid it. And with the later ones that we'll show some of these chromolithographed cardboard pieces, the cardboard it's beautiful, but it dries, it's very friable, very fragile and breakable. So you have to be careful with all of these things. Just because you bought them in great condition doesn't mean that they're going to stay in good condition on your watch. So I'm very happy that most of my collection has gone to the Huntington, where it's all been.
Now they can look after it.
Now they can look after it. Absolutely.
But you said this watercolor that faded, and this is probably the only time this word is absolutely appropriate. But that's pretty heartbreaking. And
it is.
I can also imagine your family have to be quite tolerant and understanding of a collector. We've spoken to all of our collectors about this. Yeah, they do think. Do they think you're crazy?
Well, I've got Valentines on so many walls. I say we celebrate Valentine's Day every day. I have a couple of posters that I made, and they're up. One's behind me on the wall, one's in the bathroom. Every place you go. We were big collectors. My husband was a big collector of Japanese art. So I started by just putting a few things in the bathroom, and then I gradually took over a lot of the house. So things were all over the place.
Nancy, I'd love to ask you.
Yes.
When I was in primary school, I don't know what that is in America. Grade school. That's when sending Valentines became a thing. And the first Valentine I received was from a classmate who had knowledge of Asian art, and he'd painted the sunset for me and written a poem. And at the age of 12, that was just too much for me. I couldn't accept it all. It was almost at a level of eekness or embarrassingness. And then later on, only now, I'm thinking back and I'm thinking how beautiful that piece of art was that he sent me. And I'm only appreciating it now, 30 years later.
He's the one that's got away, right?
Yeah, is he the one who got away?
Right. Well, the Valentines from primary school, from grade school, are a very important part of, especially of our Facebook page, National Valentine Collectors Association, because many of the younger collectors, these pieces, they're antique now. It's hard to believe. We think 1920s to 1940s and 50s. We're all getting older, I guess. It used to be like the Huntington collects pre-World War I. So if it's like before 1920 or 1915, they collect it. But many collectors collect those primary school ones, some, just from teachers, and they're very popular. And I do collect them also. They're wonderful. Nowadays, you have to give a Valentine to everyone in the class. It used to be selective.
That's the thing.
But no one wanted to be left out.
I wanted to ask you, what is your perception of how things have changed? I mean, I was of the era that if I hadn't received at least one Valentine, it would be a time of sorrow. My mom would need to be ready to console me. Said girl would have received 17 Valentines.
Exactly.
Well, and schools, should it not be?
I think some schools don't even share them anymore because of that. They don't want feelings to be hurt. And I really haven't checked up on what the latest is around here. But in the old days, like 1850s, women could send Valentines anonymously. All throughout my collecting, women could send them anonymously. It was the one time of year, of course, leap year we know about, but this was a time when they could be sent, and many of them were proposals. I have one where a man cut off the bottom of the Valentine and returned it to a woman and said, "I do not desire your love." It was pretty blatant.
Sure. It's quite hot.
But they were. If sometimes people get a Valentine and they say, "Well, it was never used because it's not signed," that doesn't mean it was never used.
But Valentines were sent sometimes with, puzzles, like the name might be spelled in numbers or backwards or just, from your Valentine. And there are stories about how before there was a uniform postal system in England, and people had to pay for the same thing happened in America too, but the recipient paid for the letter depending upon how heavy and how far it had traveled. So there were no envelopes because that would have added to the weight, and you see them folded. But many fathers are said to have refused the Valentines because the daughters had received so many and they were anonymous and they didn't know who they were from anyway, so they weren't accepted. So the anonymity was always a big thing. And there are comic Valentines, made to the spinster and the person who never received a Valentine. So there was heartaches. But then we have other images that show every strata of society, from the housemaids to the, fancy, landowners or whatever, to all the daughters in the family receiving lace Valentines. So it was pretty general. Every strata of society, people wanted to celebrate however they could. And,
isn't it interesting how many filters there were in place then? If you take social media into account now, there are some filters, but guaranteed an email sent will be an email received.
Right.
And then, the letter had traveled from country to country across animals and into fortresses and read by kings before they were passed on. Oh, you've got an email.
No, I should have turned my phone off.
You got it. Is it a Valentine?
It's a Valentine.
I don't know. But that's one thing about, I love e-cards and e-Valentines. And I send e-cards at Christmas because there's so many people. But there's no tangible Valentine. So as much as I like that, having something that you can hold, that tactile quality, what I call the fingerprints of love, they're not in an internet Valentine. So I want to encourage people to send something, even if it's just something quickly homemade. I have the most wonderful Valentines made by my grandchildren that are just, they're just so wonderful. And if you want to call them naive or primitive, but they're absolute tokens of love.
Well, I think there must be quite a lot of pressure in your family to send the right kind of Valentine's card to Gran. So can I ask you about some of these others? You've spoken to us about the devotional, which is absolutely beautiful.
Right. But
tell us about some of the other ones.
Okay. Are you going to show me some pictures?
Yeah. What's this over here?
Well, this one is an English one it's from the postmark is 1806, which is one of the very earliest postmarks. There are some from a couple of years earlier, but when I bought this, it was the earliest one. It was from the collection of Frank Staff, who wrote books about the penny post and about Valentines. And it's a sailor who has come home, and he's toasting his wife with a glass of wine. And he says, in war, I served my king, and now I've come home to serve you, basically. And the decorations around it are all these, spring and mating. And that's what, the mating of the birds and the tulips and the primrose and the nesting bird at the top and the hearts that are entwined. It looks like what we frequently would think of as American folk art, but it happens to be English. And it was folded and has postmark on the back. And so I've been able to, through the internet, look up, who this Mr. Pitt was and his wife, and married in a local church. And it's very charming and one of my favorite pieces, and very special.
That's extraordinary and so beautifully made. And if you think that that's over 200 years old,
right,
it kind of gives you a lot of perspective. The people who were so in love with each other then, you can almost feel a bit of it now,
right?
Even though they've been gone for 200 years.
So things like this, when I buy something like this, I'm competing with collectors of folk art, of costume, because you look at the costumes, you see the way they're dressed. He's wearing a typical sailor outfit, which we will see in a lot of the sailor's farewell types of drawings and Valentines, and her gown and her hat and the birds. It's very special to me. Personally, I like things that are handmade better. I love all of them, but the handmade ones seem to have a special, have to think about the conditions.
And I have to tell you, I completely agree with you about receiving an actual letter and people who've taken the trouble to make a card or to write something in ink or in pen or whatever on a piece of paper, it always feels much better to me.
Right. Well, before there were fancy, papers, which did come about in the late 1700s. I have a page from a book. I didn't send you the picture, but it's a flyleaf torn out of a book, and it's dated 1684. And it was just written there about the morrow being the Valentine. And it's one of my absolute treasures, given to me by a collector who got it from another collector. And despite its value, which I think is great, he gave it to me as a gift of love. And I treasure that. That's 1684. And it's, as I said, it's just a piece of the front, front page. There's nothing on the other side, torn out from an early book. So 1684 is my earliest. And you could have letters. It didn't have to be fancy paper. And often there would be a lock of hair attached. That's the most personal gift.
So what is this here? This picture?
This one is it's a continental paper cut. It's Europe, about 1710. It's also paper cut. The red is a piece of paper that I put behind it when we used it as an invitation for a Grolier Club event. I love the costumes. You see her headdress and her it's just incredible. He's got his boots and his waistcoat and his tri-corner hat, and they're handing each other these.
Does he have a dog? And she has an animal too.
Yes, look, it reminds me of the unicorn tapestries we have here. And then sometimes on early memorials, you see angels, like the ones that are on the sides. So to me, this is just wonderful. Beautiful. And I did buy that in England at an auction.
And what about this? Because this is beautiful. This is absolutely stunning. What is this?
This is called a theorem. It's a stencil drawing. This is what we call schoolgirl art, also about 1825. And the watercolor would have been spread on a stencil with this we call gum arabic to make it shade, to be able to shade it. And it's got the roses and morning glory buds, it looks like, and wonderful poetry in the middle. And I've seen one or two other copies of this, very similar. Maybe the colors are a little different. So it makes me think that maybe it was a design that was in a lady's book, like a Godey's Lady's Book or some other book, which people might have copied. And that was a very popular concept. Or it could have just been schoolgirl art, and a teacher offered the stencil to the students. Who knows? Wow.
So, I mean, there are a lot of these, and I want to give them all the right amount of attention.
Too many, maybe.
No. Don't want more. Rather that than too few, and you have so many to choose from. I'm surprised you managed to actually whittle it down.
These were pictures I had from different projects, and this is one. This is a small one. It's about probably 4 inches by 2.5, something like that, and it's a product of a woman named Esther Howland. We call her the mother of the American Valentine. She started her business and she graduated from Mount Holyoke Female Seminary in 1847. That was in Massachusetts. Her father was a stationer, and he received some Valentines from England from some clients that he did business with. And when she saw them, she thought, gee, I can do better than that. So she made some samples. This kind of sample has layered lace. It has her little, you can see the red wafers behind, which was one of her signatures. There are little accordion pages which make it rise up in layers, and then she has maybe a Baxter print in the center of an artist. And so these would have been sent. She would make a template, and all the materials would be in a box. And she first had her brother take them on a sales trip. He wasn't happy about it, but he did, and he came back with $5,000 worth of orders in 1847. So she started her business with template, which she would put together, and she would have a coachman take them out to ladies' homes. And when they finished all of their chores, they or their children would assemble Valentines. The horse and buggy would come back a week later and collect them, and the women would get a little pin money. So
it's like the Amazon of that time, right?
My mind is absolutely blown. Right. That romanticism existed then.
So she was a real entrepreneur. Yeah. And she was, before you know it, she was earning $100,000 a year at that time, which is incomprehensible.
That's huge.
And there were many stories about her, but some of these early ones that I think were assembled in homes look like the children assembled them, because they don't follow any particular pattern and they look kind of homemade. But that was how she started. And then she was very successful, and she made larger ones. The smaller ones are identified. There are marks on the backs of most of them. When she started getting competition, she started labeling them. But then her bigger ones were never signed, and collectors and even Hallmark have attributed them to her because of the materials that were used were only available in certain places and how she was able to acquire them. So they were on fine English lace that might have cost $50. So we know that one suitor was rejected because the woman said she would never accept a man who wasted so much money on a basket. I think it was an Easter basket, Valentine.
Here's another one of hers.
This is one of those.
One,
this is the famous
wow.
Howland bouquet.
That's
And
embroidery, right?
She was this is just one of the layers. This might have been an interior layer of this lace. And then you would open up and they were majestic. And the image, the flowers are like a kind of clay composite that was hand painted. And so she had the idea, she was importing them from Germany, that they should machine make them so it would be easier. And so even the paper ones, her girls would have to cut out. And they rejected the idea. But a few years later, embossed scraps were available pre-cut. So I think she must have been the inspiration. So she's one of the icons.
The level of detail here is just absolutely unbelievable.
Right.
Wow.
And you have to, if you enlarge it and you get closer, you see, and these were like 8 by 10 in size. And when you find them, it's like you're finding the Holy Grail, for a collector.
Wow.
And this looks like a very old drawing, the kind of Georgian stuff. That
Yes,
the
and
English
it's by George Cruikshank, and the big hat. So it's kind of an early satire, and you see her hat, and you can imagine the styles of the day with these balloon sleeves and the big crinolines, making fun. And he was very good at that. And Cruikshank did the satires even in the late 1700s. So that was one of the reasons that the Huntington was so eager to have the collection, because they could follow the evolution and of the English satire that they have from the 18th century, and this is just the continuation. So
her waist is the same size as her neck,
right?
and her sleeves don't even span.
Right.
The width of her hat.
Maybe that's a love letter in her hand, or I don't know.
Wow.
But I did see a girl just the other day who had a wasp waist like that, and I just couldn't believe it. But I don't know, not me. As you get older, you spread a little bit. It's hard.
You and me, girl.
You just have to love it. This is an example of the chromolithography that reached a peak around the turn of the century. This is a German-made postcard, and it's a kaleidoscope. And if you look on both edges, I can't post both sides, there's a wheel. And when you turn that wheel, it's a kaleidoscope.
With the stencils. And as you turn the stencils, the cogs fit in,
right,
and they draw a pattern. Am I right?
Yes. And so there were other postcards and other Valentines made like this. I have one that has a geisha on a Japanese geisha on a Valentine, and her I think it's her dress that changes color. And then I have them also for other holidays. Right. It was just another. Postcards are a really important aspect of the collecting because several reasons. They're really very pretty. There's a lot of history involved. It was a huge collecting passion. People would send cards back and forth to each other. We had a postal system. People would send holiday cards, but it wouldn't have a holiday message. It was just maybe something they were sending. But also, collectors nowadays are finding that you can buy them very reasonably priced. You can find an artist-signed Valentine postcard by someone like Ellen Clapsaddle for $2 to $10, maybe even less. So they are around, and a lot of the young collectors who they really love the subject. They're not familiar with the history, for one thing, which I'm trying to spread on our Facebook page and by articles I write. But they can't afford expensive things. Some of these today, we're talking, $100, $200. And, as you can get much more expensive when you get into the rarefied ones. But I'm enjoying having the young collectors on our site. And we have a sister site, which is our marketplace. People are selling things for $2 and $7 and $10. So you can put together a collection. And then as you get more knowledge or more passion, you can get better ones, or you may decide, I don't like Valentine's at all. I'm going to collect something else. And so I encourage people to try that, you know.
I'm going to quickly go through a couple of these. I do want to stop at the Superman one, though, but I just want to show people some of these ones, and feel free to drop in a little bit of info here.
Yeah, this is a postcard from 1910. It's a Schmucker postcard, and I love her. She's eating hearts, and, you know, chocolates are a very popular gift. And now, of course, any heart-shaped thing for Valentine's Day, but chocolate's supposed to be an aphrodisiac. So you hope to receive some chocolate bonbons. We've just discovered a collector on our Facebook page who only collects heart-shaped tins and has thousands of them. I couldn't believe it. I don't think you can ever erase the scent of chocolate from a tin. So that must be quite a perfumed place. This is another one. And this one, I mentioned Ellen Clapsaddle. This is one of hers, The Dreamer. And so, and you'll have a brother and sister version. I think they're just charming. And so you have people who collect children, who collect dogs. We have lots of people who collect cats and dogs. Valentine's with kittens are very, very popular. So, and usually
that's amazing. What is going on here?
This is the interior of one of those Howland Valentines, the one I showed you on layers. This is called a cobweb, and usually it's called a cobweb, a flower cage, or a beehive. They're the only names I know. When it's closed, it's flat, and if you look carefully, you can see concentric circles, which are either hand cut or machine cut. When you lift the cobweb by an invisible, almost invisible thread, a little silk thread, you'll find something inside. Here we have a couple. He's playing the guitar, which is also an amorous symbol, on the couch. But sometimes you'll have a lock of hair or a Cupid or something small. It's usually on the front. So this is attached to the back page, and it's very unusual because if you opened it too fast, you could tear it. But I wanted to show this.
Wow.
Cobwebs yes. And
I mean,
Superman.
Yeah.
Well, I've got Superwoman. I couldn't locate a picture of Superwoman either, but believe me, I do have her, and she's beautiful. I don't want anyone to think I'm telling favorites, but this shows you that Valentines were made to go along with every popular movie or, I mean, we have Superman, we have, I just can't think off it, Alice in Wonderland, whole series, Pinocchio, and the Seven Dwarfs. And then you want to collect all of them. And so these all came out at that time, say late 1930s, 38, 39, 40. And they usually have copyright marks on the back. We have Mickey Mouse. I mean, and then there are some that accompanied personalities like you, like radio shows. And we have them on Valentine's too. So beware.
Nancy, I'm just so pleased that you gave us a little peek into your world. It's
mind blown.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to share on Valentine's Day. And I appreciate very much your time. I know that you're in New Jersey, and it's early in the morning over there for you now. And I really appreciate you showing off your incredible collection. And I'm thrilled that the Huntington Library is looking after so much of this for posterity. What are you going to do with the stuff that you haven't given to the library? Are you going to hand it to the kids? Is there someone who wants it?
Well, I'm working on a group that is another group that's going to go to the Huntington. I was just out there last week, as a matter of fact, because there was a book fair at the same time. So I had an opportunity to look at all the shelves and the drawers, and I couldn't believe that some of those things really had been mine, because they're not here anymore. I'm going to send them some more. I'm trying to put together a little collection for my children. They love them, but I think they just want maybe one piece to hang on the wall, and no one has the room to store a collection or house it. And I probably will sell some, but it's very hard. I'm a collector, not a dealer. And so selling, I mean, I'd rather I have some of my old collectors from before we had the Facebook. We had a regular organization with newsletters I did 4 times a year, and some of those older collectors, maybe they don't even have the internet, and I'll just put together some packages for them and share the love, spread it. Sometimes people buy old ones to give now, to regift the love.
Well, I mean, One thing that comes through loud and clear about you is the love, and thank you very much for
glad.
sharing your collection with us.
Thank you so
Nancy
much.
Rosen and her
Thank you.
incredible Valentine collections.
You're
So
sweet. Thank you.
this Valentine's Day, the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop invite you to celebrate consistency. I mean, during times like these where everything's uncertain, who can you count on to have your back? Well, your greatest cheerleader may be gold. It has a 6,000-year track record as a safe store of value, so that's pretty consistent. Head over to their website. It is at scoinshop.com and enter to stand the chance of winning a dinner worth 2,000 Rand for you and your loved one. And consider very carefully and seriously giving a really beautiful Valentine's card, making it yourself. I mean, this is what people used to do. Beautiful.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Thank you,
Day.
Nancy.
Thank you.
Take care.
Wow, that was terrific.
Thank you.